Do you ever just sit down and not know what to draw? You just sit down and have no idea what you're creating, and you have no ideas whatsoever. Well, the good news is you don't always need an idea to start creating or start a new drawing, right? Sometimes it can even be more freeing, and it can open up to a lot more creativity and more ideas as you progress by just simply going in and winging it. So in this video, we're going to be talking about some things that could potentially free your mindset up, reassure you that it's okay to not have ideas when you're just going into a new artwork, and why it's important to just sometimes create without an idea in the first initial phase. Okay, now the first thing that I highly recommend is to just let go of that big idea, or let go of the pressure of trying to find or let that big idea come to you, right? Because whenever you wait or start searching for that big idea, you become stagnant. You start procrastinating, right? And you start overthinking, and then over time it's gonna keep creeping up to you and start saying, when is that new idea going to come? When is that big idea going to come? Sometimes you don't need that, right? Obviously there are cases where that does happen, and that's great, but there are a lot of cases where it doesn't, right? And sometimes you need to go out and actually start creating something, just random anything, and that big idea might actually come along the process. If anything, it's actually part of the process of creating to be able to find that big idea. Okay, now it's not always a bad thing to wait for the next big idea, but you shouldn't let that stop you from creating. You shouldn't let that cause stagnation in you as a creative, as an artist, right? You want to be able to keep creating, putting in that mileage, and just getting the flow constantly going. Okay, now just remember that if sometimes the big idea will actually come to you naturally along the process, somewhere in the middle, or maybe even somewhere near the end, right? So just something to reassure you that it's okay if you don't have that big idea, just like yourself, or if you're ever going through that. I go through that as well. And when I first started off and I was waiting for that big idea, it caused a lot of procrastination and a lot of wasted time. So I'm here to just let you know that it's okay to just go in there with no big idea, right? Even if you create a whole entire artwork or two artworks and you don't feel like it's that big idea, that's okay, because every piece of artwork, every stroke you created is another step closer towards that next big idea. Okay, so it's about trying to make you make better use of time, and not to, I guess, hurt yourself emotionally or creatively. Okay, so it's okay, guys. It's okay. Next one is it's totally okay to just wing it, right? You don't have to know what you're doing. You don't have to have any set ideas like what we just talked about. You just go in there and start placing shapes, some colors in there, and sometimes these things can stimulate ideas as you progress, right? Using shapes, you can easily start seeing things that you might not have initially thought of, right? And simply just messing around with things like color, shapes, lines, texture even, those things can really help to stimulate ideas as you go, basically, right? And just like this video that's playing right here, as you can see, I'm just kind of going in with shapes and just kind of letting the flow, just going with the flow and just letting the shapes and the mood and the feeling just kind of take form as we go. Right, now obviously the more you do it, the more comfortable this process is going to become, right? And I do this a lot, and now it's gone to the point where just simply blocking in shapes and getting some mood and color in there, you might even be able to use certain moods or palettes that you've used in the past that have worked for you. Just bring that in and start blocking in different shapes and see what comes out, right? And some of my favorite artworks have actually come from just simply winging it, right? There's no set ideas. A lot of the videos that you see, or process videos that you see of my artworks that start from a blank canvas, no line work, straight into shapes, that's basically just all built just on the go, right? And it's just allowing that creative flow to just take form, right? And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become, and eventually it could even become a process for you. And it's for me, it's very fun. It's a very fun process. Obviously throughout the piece, throughout every piece, I still have my discomforts, but you just kind of keep going and then problem solve each problem as you encounter them, right? And problem solving leads to learning new techniques and new ways of solving things that might occur again in the future, right? So, just wing it. And what's creativity? Creativity, hard to explain, right? So when it comes to creativity, as long as you just have some sort of process in terms of the way you kind of block in, for example, detailing, and refinements and all that kind of stuff. If you just have that step going in, but then you let the rest kind of just flow, you'll have a lot of fun as an artist, and you'll be able to probably create some of your most unexpected favorite artworks. Okay, so winging it isn't bad. Especially if you're struggling and you don't have that first initial idea or that big idea that we talked about, just go in and wing it. There's no right or wrong, right? There's no right or wrong to doing this. There's no certain process that you need to stick with. Just get in there, start putting something on the canvas and see what comes out. Now, after what we've talked about, and you're now wondering, what steps shall I take to actually start creating with zero ideas? Here's a few tips for you that you might find helpful. Simply just draw in, if you're more of a line work artist, just get in there, start creating some lines, see what comes out. If you're someone that works with shapes like myself, start blocking in shapes. Grab the most outrageous brush that you can think of with a random, the most random shape perhaps. Just start blocking in and just see what comes out, right? Sometimes creating a certain shape or a blob or whatever it might be, you might actually start seeing something in it. Perhaps it could be a structure of something in an environmentscape, right? Sometimes just creating more rigid blocks, for example, you might see some buildings in there that might stimulate some ideas for your composition or your design, right? Sometimes you can even give yourself some sort of short sentence of an idea, something like a fantasy forest with a wizard or something standing there, whatever, and just come up with something that could start stimulating some thoughts and just get something stimulating in your brain to start putting some ideas on canvas, right? Now remember, the goal here isn't to create something perfect, right? The goal here is simply to just start. And once you make that start, whether you like it or not, you've done something, right? And I always say to myself, the good ideas come after all the bad ideas. I'm sure I heard it off someone when I was a student. I heard it from someone, but I can't remember who actually. But something that stuck with me and it still stays with me today, and I still think about it. Get rid of all the bad ideas first, and that could be all the sketches and blobs. Get it out of there, get it out of your system, and then the good stuff might eventually come, right? So, never lose hope in yourself as a creative. We're all creative in our own way, and we all have different experiences that create that creativity in ourselves. The way I think will always be different to the way all you guys think, and vice versa to everyone else, right? So, never look down on yourself and never look down on your own creativity. The most important thing here is just to make a start and then seeing what comes out, right? Let that creativity just blossom, right? And if you don't make a start, that will never happen, right? So make a start, get rid of all those bad ideas or all those ideas that you think is, could be better. And then the good stuff starts coming, right? And the good stuff will come. I always believe that. So maybe that could be something that helps you. So it's all about making a start, guys. I've got so many iterations, so many artworks that I've started or sketches that I've started that will never see the light of day. And you won't see it. You won't, right? And that's totally fine. That's part of the process. Get rid of the bad stuff and the good stuff will come. Okay? So remember, the goal here is not to make it perfect, it's to make a start. So then what happens when you make a start? Well, when you make a start, and once your hands are moving and you're creating your just movement, your brain starts to join in, right? And then you start to see things as you create. This might be different for everyone, But from my experience, for example, once your hands are moving and your brain joins in, you start seeing things, right? You start seeing shapes, and you will see shapes differently to the way I see shapes, because my experiences are different to yours. And that's the beauty of art, right? That's the beauty of the creative process, right? I might see something and relate to it because of my past experiences as a human in my life, and you will do the same in your case from your experiences and what you've known and seen in your life, right? So let that happen, and like I said, you'll start to see things. You will, and the more you experiment with that, the more you get better at it, and the more you get better at relating this shape or something to something that you know or you've seen, right? You might have looked at an art book in the past that I haven't seen, and then you might relate it back to that, and then that starts giving you ideas on what to create and what the big idea might be, right? Or if nothing happens in these first couple of pieces, don't be discouraged. It's part of the process, and remember, just enjoy the process, and that's enough, because the process in itself is art, right? So I always talk about in my tutorials and to my students in my courses, the creative process is something that gets undermined a lot. It's something that is so powerful, and if you find a way and you find like a routine to, I guess, kind of take control of the creative process, your art will start to level up, and it is something that's hard to explain, but honestly, it's something that will become clear to you as you just keep creating, because a creative process, is something. For example, when I teach, I can give you my creative process, but when it comes to art, such a complicated concept, it doesn't always fit everyone, right? It's not a one size fits all, right? But I can help you get a start on things. Now, once you've taken my creative process or my process in general and how I create, man, you can start changing things up, start changing things to directions that fits you better, and it's something that you develop. It doesn't come to you. It's something you develop over time, and through your experience of creating. So once again, that just kind of brings us back to making a start. Make that start. You'll start seeing patterns in what you do enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and you'll over time start developing your own creative process, right? So yeah, it's part of the it's the journey, right? So enjoy the process, because like I said, that's art as well. All right, guys. Now, just to make a quick recap of what we've talked about, I guess the main thing I'm trying to get through to you today through this video is, just reassure you that it's okay to feel uncreative sometimes. It's okay to feel lost. It's okay to not feel like. It's okay to feel like you don't have that big idea all the time. You're not meant to. Okay. You don't need a plan. Okay. You don't need to be great. I mean, you don't even need to be good. You just need to make a start. Right? I mean, I have my own art heroes. I know you do too. And every time you look at their work, you always feel small compared to them, right, as an artist. But, don't let that make you kind of huddle up into a ball. Let that be a burning kind of spark to, motivate you to do better, motivate you to level up, motivate you to become a better version of yourself and become a better version of yourself as an artist. Okay, now, it's all about just making a start, and I've talked about it throughout this whole entire video. It's about making a start. It doesn't have to be something. It doesn't have to be anything. Sometimes it's just get those brush strokes in there, right? Get shapes in there, and just see what happens, right? Just seeing what happens is part of the creative process. Okay, and remember, a lot of the times, a lot of the things you create might not make sense, but pros do that all the time as well. Okay, nothing has to make sense. It's all about getting, just making a start and seeing what comes out. It's obviously a bit different when you do have, if you're working on client projects that already have a goal in mind for you. But that in its case already, that's already some sort of lead towards something, right? And they usually have some ideas that they can give to you, so you kind of just create to what they're requesting. right, with your own creative flair incorporated into it. Okay, but the main part here is, you know, we all feel lost sometimes. We all feel tired and uncreative, you know, and that's totally fine. It happens all the time. It will always happen. But you know, it's about strengthening your mind to know that this happens to everyone, and it's okay to feel that way. Okay, so if you're just starting off, don't let that be the reason that you don't create. Just make a start, see what happens, and just keep getting that mileage in. And when I say mileage, I'm talking about things like just drawing, right? Because the more you do, the closer you get to that next goalpost of leveling up. If you sit there and do nothing, you're not moving at all. You're better off doing something that you're not proud of, but you're still making steps towards the next piece that you're going to be proud of. And then that will eventually lead to the next stage of your level up as an artist. Okay, now I hope you guys enjoyed that and found it helpful in any way. You know, it happens, you know, to all of us. It's totally fine. We're all humans first and foremost, you know. So, you know, go easy on yourself, you know. And the last thing I want is to see young creatives just starting off feel discouraged and not wanting to pick up the pen and start drawing at all. Okay, so that's it for this one, and stay tuned for the next video on any tips and advice. If you do enjoy this, make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that, and it would help me a lot. If you do have any other friends that, you know, might be going through some sort of slump or might be waiting for that next idea or that next big idea, send this through to them, and perhaps I could open them up a little bit. Okay, so thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.